of recitation. The etiquette of recitation. This chapter is the main point of this book, and it is wide-ranging. I allude to the essence of its objectives for my dislike of lengthiness and for fear of boring the reader. The first things that are obligatory for the reciter are sincerity, as previously stated, and observing proper etiquette with the Quran. One should bring to mind that he is addressing Allah Most High, and therefore should read as if one sees Allah Most High. And even if he does not see Allah, verily Allah sees him. The tooth stick or miswak. Yani today we can also say toothbrush. It's okay. If you brush your teeth with a toothbrush, and you rinsed your mouth before reading the Quran, that does it as well. If one wants to recite the Quran, he should clean his mouth with a toothstick or the like. The preference is for a toothstick to be a twig from the arak tree. It is permissible to use all other twigs and to use anything that cleans, such as a coarse cloth or saltwort. As for accomplishing this with a coarse finger, the companions of a Shafi'i have three opinions. The most well known is that this does not accomplish the task. The second is that it does. The third is that it is acceptable if nothing else is available, but not when there is. One uses the toothstick laterally, beginning from the right side. Why laterally? Is laterally this or is laterally that? It's this. Why laterally? Because otherwise, when you go from up to down, you will damage your gums and you will start bleeding, and then you need to perform your wudu again. So that's why they say in the width, not in the length. Horizontally, not vertically. Okay, that's the reason. Okay. Beginning from the right side. He makes intention to perform the sunnah. Some scholars have said that when using a toothstick, one should say, "O Allah, bless me in it, O most merciful of the merciful." Al-Mawardi, one of Shafi'i's later followers, said, "It is recommended that to use toothstick on the outer and inner portions of the teeth. One gently passes the toothstick over the edges of his teeth." Yeah, and then you can say this one. Biker spits and molars and the roof of his palate. They said that one should use an ordinary toothstick, not one extremely dry or wet. He said if it is extremely dry, one should soften it with water. There is no problem with using someone else's toothstick with his permission. Well, that's a personal choice, isn't it? So is it haram? No, it's not haram. Do you dislike it? Then don't do it. Is that clear? Anything to say? No? Well, we already said that a toothstick is supposed to be cut every now and then, right? We had a talk about the miswak, remember? So when someone wants to use your stick, you can do that in two ways. If it is a toothstick, a miswak, then you just give him the other side. You cut the other side and he brushes his teeth with it. You cut it away and there's no trace left. So there's no problem, okay? When the mouth is filthy, when one's mouth is filthy with blood or the like, it is offensive to recite the Quran before rinsing it. But is it unlawful? Rawayani, one of the later followers of Shafi'i, conveyed from his father that two opinions are conceivable. The soundest one being that it is not unlawful. Ritual purity. Minor ritual impurity. It is recommended to be in a state of wudu when reciting the Quran. It is permissible to recite in a state of minor ritual impurity, meaning you're allowed to recite the Quran when you don't have wudu. That's what it's talking about. He's talking about, but not touching the Quran. There are two different things. According to the consensus of the Muslims, the ahadith concerning it are many and well known. Imam al-Haramain al-Juwayni said that one should not say that one has committed something offensive if he recites with minor ritual impurity. Rather, he has neglected what is best. If one does not find water, he should make tayammum. The ruling concerning a woman with abnormal bleeding when she is otherwise considered pure, yani in that period of the month, is similar to that of anyone with minor ritual impurity. Yani, but in the Hanafi school, we would very often go by the Maliki opinion. Like in this, what my Hanafi teachers yani would tell me to do. Like when a woman is in that period in time, then that she goes by the Maliki opinion, like that she can read the Quran. The reason why is, or why can she do this? One, if she's a student of the Quran, or if she's a teacher of the Quran, or she's memorizing the Quran, or has memorized the Quran and fears to forget the Quran. So this is what an exception would be. This is what my Hanafi teachers would tell me to do when I was teaching women and men alike the Quran when I was in Jordan. So, and this is something that I go by myself. Because if you're a student of knowledge and you can't read the Quran or you can't revise the Quran, it can become very difficult. But as for reading without a reason, then we say no. Like just reading because for the barakah it's Friday, I want to read Surah Al-Kahf, I feel my iman is weak. No. Okay? Anyway, let's continue.
Not even from memory.
What?
Not even from memory.
No, you don't recite the Quran. What you can do, you can recite in your head. So what would be allowed in all cases, if the Quran would be in front of you and you would not be touching it, and you would be reading it with your eyes, that's permissible. So that is not the problem. The problem is reading or uttering or speaking or moving the mouth and the lips and the tongue while reading the Quran. That would be the part which wouldn't be allowed, which would not be allowed. But as for going over it in your mind, exactly like when you stand behind the Imam, you don't recite Al-Fatiha. That doesn't mean that you can't go with your mind over Al-Fatiha. That are two entirely different things. Very often we think, what should I do then? Just stand and do nothing, because a Hanafi doesn't recite Surah Al-Fatiha behind the Imam at all. Reciting in the language means moving your mouth. It doesn't mean going with your mind over the surah. So what we do is just behind the Imam, we go over Al-Fatiha with our mind. Alhamdulillahi Rabbil Alameen on the inside, not reading, because reading out loud is for the Imam, not for the Ma'mum. Yes?
So far, we're memorizing, so you sat at work and on your desk and you're memorizing in your head, but you're moving your lips, and then when you get to an ayah where something is required, if you don't move your lips and just say in your head,
Then you haven't recited it.
is it bad to do that?
No, it's not bad in that situation. It's not bad, it's smart. But you can do qada of your...
Yeah, I have to do 25 1.8.
So I wouldn't, what I always say, if people say, yeah, I'm not going to read that one, I'm going to skip that verse because otherwise I can't do it now, and I don't want to do qada of it, or I have too many qadas to do, then we say, well, sujood is exactly that what shaitan run away from. You understand what I mean? I'm not going to do it. What didn't shaitan want to do? وَإِذْ قُلْنَا لِلْمَلَائِكَةِ اسْجُدُوا لِآدَمَ فَسَجَدُوا إِلَّا إِبْلِيسَ. So add a sujood to the qada, no problem. No, just do it. And 25 is not a lot. Last time I had somebody who had to make up 400 or something. Yes. Yes. Only once, in one majlis. Yes. Not every time you repeat it. Unless you read two different ones, then it's two. Yes, but as we have one in Surah Sajda, not two, we don't have that problem. If we can call it a problem, right? Making sujood. Yes.
I wanted to ask, as a mom, when you're not praying,
Yes.
and you want to recite for your children when they're going to sleep.
In the Hanafi fiqh we can't. But in the Maliki fiqh you can. In the Maliki fiqh they say the ta'weez is not, the intention behind it is not reading the Quran. So they would say that even the dua when you drive a car, for example, is from the Quran. Subhanalladhi sakhkhara lana hadha wa ma kunna lahu muqrinin wa inna ila rabbina lamunqalibun was the dua of the Prophet. So now, you can't say this, but according to the Maliki fiqh, this is not with the intention to read Quran. So the same would be when you read Surah Al-Ikhlas, Surah Al-Falaq, Surah Al-Nas, then this is considered to be a dua more than it is considered to be recited in the Quran. But this is when you go by the Maliki fiqh. Otherwise, but there are a lot of things one can say apart from the Quran. Dua is permissible. You can say dua, you can say Bismillahi alladhi la yadurru ma'a ismihi shay'un fil ardi wa la fis sama'i ismihi alim. You can put your hand on your child's head and say the well-known hadith that the Prophet ﷺ used to do for Al-Hasan al-Hussein. أعيذك بكلمات الله التامة من كل شيطان وهامة ومن كل عين لامة ومن شر ما خلق. So there are a lot of things one can do. So I don't see a need here to go to other madhab in order to be able to perform the dua, if you understand what I mean. So they would also allow Ayatul Kursi to be read as it is ta'weeth, that is recite. But in the Hanafi fiqh, nevertheless, we would say that if a lady would be in that period in time of the month, that it would be recommended for her to have her musalla, and the musalla would be the place that she specified in her house, which is her prayer place. Meaning not sometimes in the kitchen and then in the... I didn't say kitchen because I'm talking about women, right? So otherwise we have the Me Too story. So sometimes in the kitchen, sometimes in the living room, sometimes in the bedroom, whatever. No, she has a fixed space and place where she will perform her prayer. That's her musalla. That is where she can then do i'tikaf, only with the condition that she turned it into a musalla. So anyway, so now we say, and that was what my Shaykh Wasim al-Pakistani told me when he was explaining me Maraqi Sa'adat. And he said, so what you can do now as a woman is, very often women feel that during this period in time that their iman becomes weaker, or that they feel further away from Allah Jalla wa Ala because there's no prayer, there is no Quran, so they feel a bit, abandoned in a certain way. So one of the things that we would say in Hanafi, which one can do, is that in that musalla, that every time it's time to pray, a woman can perform the actions of wudu, but she will not be in a state of wudu. We're not saying she has to do this, no? But to have the habit, we said body has a memory, right? So it connects you in a certain way, and then put on the prayer clothes and sit on the prayer mat and make dua, do tasbih, read a religious book for the same amount of time that she would be praying. So if that's 5 minutes, then for 5 minutes you take your time. Because otherwise during a week or a bit less or a bit more, there will be very often no dua, no sujood, no nothing. And that then you feel that. So this is the one of these things that she can do. Also, when a woman is in this period of time, she shouldn't feel bad if she can't pray or if she can't fast. Because not praying and not fasting is her worship. The only reason why she stops fasting is because Allah didn't allow her. So all the hours that she's not fasting and not praying, she's being rewarded for. You see this? She's being rewarded for. So, and now she's being rewarded more because she says, oh no, like she wants to fast, she wants to pray, but she's not allowed. So that yearning and that wanting, while not being allowed, even the reward for this might be bigger than men praying and fasting while saying, oh no, I gotta go to the mosque. So her not doing it and wanting it might be stronger than man doing it and not wanting it. You see this? So this is the way that we look at the karam and the rahmah from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala in doing this. But anyway, that's an...
I was just going to ask that in Surah Al-Hajj, there are two sajdas of prostration. So why do a lot of people just treat it as one, say...
I said Surah Sajda, right? I was referring... Yeah, anyway. No. So the reason the scholars differ about this, Shafi'i madhab, the Hanafi madhab and so forth, we differ about where the sajdat exactly are. And that goes back to a hadith of Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wasallam and so much more. In fiqh, it is discussed when we speak about sajda to tilawa. So you can have a look in a fiqh textbook and it will become very clear. No. Okay, where were we? Major ritual impurity, were we there? Okay. It is unlawful for a person in a state of major ritual impurity or during menstruation to recite the Quran, whether it is a verse or even less. It is permissible for them to silently peruse the Quran in their hearts without uttering it, and to look in the actual written text of the Quran and go over it in the heart. The Muslims have consensus that this is permissible for a person in a state of major ritual impurity or during menstruation to say Subhanallah, La ilaha illallah, Alhamdulillah, Allahu Akbar. To offer prayers of salutation upon the Messenger of Allah sallallahu alaihi wasallam and other litanies, as long as there are no ayat within it, according to the madhab. Our Shafi'i companion said that it is the same. If one says to a person, "O Yahya, hold fast to the book," or the like. This is a verse of the Quran. Or the like, but not intending by it the Quran per se. This is permissible. It is likewise permissible for them both, the person with major ritual impurity and the woman in menses, to say, "We belong to God and surely to Him we shall return," in response to some calamity, if they did not intend it as recitation of Quran per se. Our Shafi companions from Khurasan said that it is permissible for them, when mounting a riding beast, to say, "Glory be to Him," which we have mentioned. Again, if they do not intend it as a recitation. Imam al-Haramain al-Juwayni said that when a person in major ritual impurity says in the name of God and praise be to Allah, intending it to be recitation of the Quran, he has transgressed. But if he intended thereby the remembrance of Allah or nothing in particular, then he did not sin. It is permissible for them to recite something whose recitation has been abrogated, like when a married man and a married woman commits adultery, their punishment shall be stoning as retribution. Dry ablution. An individual with major ritual impurity or menstruation may make dry ablution in the absence of water. Then it is lawful to recite the Quran, pray and perform other things that require ritual purity. But if thereafter one were to have minor ritual impurity, it is unlawful to pray, but not unlawful to recite Quran, sit in a mosque or other things lawful for someone in a state of minor ritual impurity. He is considered a person who made a purificatory bath, like that? Purificatory, okay. The purificatory bath, and then had a minor ritual impurity. This is an issue that is asked about and considered rare. It is said, what is a scenario in which a person in major ritual impurity is barred from praying but not barred from reciting the Quran or sitting in the mosque without necessity? The foregoing is such a scenario. Regarding this issue, there is no difference between making dry ablution while resident or traveling. Some of the followers of Imam Shafi'i have mentioned that if one makes dry ablution while resident, it is lawful to pray, but he may not recite the Quran outside the prayer nor sit in the mosque. But the sound position is that reciting is permissible, as we previously mentioned. So some of the scholars would make a difference. Like if I would have made wudu to recite the Quran with the intention to recite the Quran, would I then be allowed to tayammum to recite the Quran, but not with the intention to perform prayer? Am I then allowed to perform prayer with that tayammum, yes or no? So this is in some madahib a discussion point. Why? Because your tayammum for your recitation of the Quran was what? Was not as strong as your tayammum for the recitation, for what? For praying. But in the other way around, they say if you perform the tayammum for prayer, then every other thing is allowed, because the tayammum for the prayer is the strongest tayammum, and everything else is weaker. Its intention is weaker, or and so forth. So anyway, this is their discussion point. If one were to make dry ablution, then pray, recite, and then wanted to make dry ablution again because of major ritual impurity, to prepare for another obligatory prayer or something else, it is not unlawful for him to recite the Quran according to the sound preferred opinion. Some of the latter companions of Shafi'i hold the opinion that it's not permissible, but the well-known is the former. So I told you before that when the Shafi'iyah say something that we have different in our madhab or not, then I'm not going to discuss this, right? So the fiqh issues, you should go by your madhab. But we are reading it because it's a part of the book. In the absence of water and earth, when someone with major ritual impurity finds... Okay, so now you're not in a state of wudu. You are reading a tafsir book, or we are talking now about the Hanafi fiqh, right? When I give examples, either someone in a state of major impurity, or either a woman during her menses, reading a tafsir book, or a poster with Quran on it, or your phone, and you have your phone with Quran. So what is the ruling now? What is the ruling? With regards to tafsir books, or between brackets, translation of the Quran. If it's a translation of the Quran without any Arabic, we don't have a problem. Because if it's not in Arabic, then it's not Quran. Done. Sometimes you have the Arabic translation, you have the Arabic and you have the translation. So what now? Well, they say if the English words are more and the amount of words which you are not going to count, and it is more. You have the introduction, and then you have the index, and then you have so much more. Then you can touch the book, but you can't touch the verses. Is that clear? You can touch the book, but not the verses. Meaning, you don't go with your hand over the verses. When you are in a ritual state of impurity, major impurity, you can't touch the Quran. No? So now we are talking without when the words within it are more. What's the opinion, Maulana? No, minor impurity. Yes, minor. I said major, right? Yeah, minor impurity. No? So then what? Without when you are not in a state of wudu. I said menses, and so I went wrong. So in your minor state of impurity, you're not allowed to touch the Quran. You're only allowed to touch the Quran with wudu. If you don't have wudu, you don't touch the Quran. Meaning that you are not even allowed to carry the Quran. Now, what do you have to do? Like for example, it falls down. No? So, and you're not in state of impurity. What are you going to do now? Are you going to first make wudu, leave the Quran on the ground? No. You can take your sleeve, you go like this, and you take it up. You don't touch it with your hands, because now there is a veil. Okay? So that would be allowed. Now, if you have a Quran, and it is in one part, like this, then you are never allowed to touch it without wudu. If the ghilaf, the cover, is separate from the book, meaning there is a cover around it, but like this, for you know these ones with a zipper, for example, you can detach it. If you detach it and it's in it, then you can do so. Yes. So if it's with the ghilaf, you are not allowed to touch it. If it is without, yani the ghilaf is separate from it, you are. If you were to see how, and I said this before, how the Jews in Antwerp, yani handle, take care of their Torah, it's you can't imagine. They have something around it. When it's raining, they put a plastic around it. They keep it always higher than their belly button, always here. They protect it against rain and wind. And the problem is, yani, they didn't protect its meanings, right? But we are talking about the outward thing. Wait, one moment, please. So this is one. Okay, so now, when you have this Quran with you're in minor state of ritual impurity, state of minor, what?
You need wudu.
You need wudu. So now, if it is a book with more English and everything, and then you could touch it. A poster, for example, you need to carry the poster from one place to another. What is allowed and what isn't? A poster with Quran on it.
So if they have English, then it's the same as you mentioned.
Yes.
It's like a book.
Mm-hmm.
So if majority of it is English,
Yes.
then you can pick it up.
Yes. But if the poster is entirely in Arabic.
If the poster is entirely in Arabic, then no, because it's different to the phone.
Mm-hmm.
The phone might be, you can carry the phone, and you can move the side, because
Yes.
it's pixels,
Yes.
and they can be broken, and it's not a hard copy. But if it's a poster, then it's still hard copy, so you can't touch it.
Exactly. You can't touch it. But now they say, can you touch the sides of it when the Quran is on it? Or can't you just touch the ayat? You made the difference between the pixels, hard copy and non-hard copy.
Yeah, but you check the same thing as we mentioned. Can you touch the paper on the side of the Quran and not the words?
No.
So you can't, because
Exactly.
the words are written on the paper.
No.
So the poster is the same. You can't
Yes.
touch the entire poster.
And then you have people saying Quran on the ground is no problem. I sat next to someone, I told you, and I said, please don't put the Quran on the floor. He said, what's your dalil? What's your proof? Anyway, so it's exactly as our Maulana said. Naam. So, and then if you now have a tafsir book in Arabic, what now? Well, there are different kinds of tafsir books. One is an explanatory tafsir, where the person, the mufassir, there is the Quran, and then he will, when explaining the Quran, repeat the ayah, repeat the word which is in the verse, meaning that the amount of words which are Quranic words will be more or almost more than the explanation, then that has the same ruling as the Quran. Okay? But like if you have the tafsir of Imam Fakhruddin al-Razi where he explains one ayah in 50 pages, then that's different. So it all depends. But like when you go to Kalimat al-Quran, for example, and you see it's just an explanation of a word, and that word then comes back in the explanation, then you have more Quranic words than others, or you doubt, then you're not allowed to touch it without what? Without wudu. And when you're in a major state, impure state, then you just can't touch it at all. No? But can you touch it with a pen when you are not in a state of wudu? Can you turn the pages? We said you're allowed to read the Quran, right? When you are not in a state of wudu. You're allowed to read Quran. Do we agree? But you're not allowed to touch it. So are you now allowed to use a pen and turn the pages? You are. But the question I am asking, why would you do that? Why don't you just make wudu? You know how difficult it is to use that pen? I've tried it, right? And I said, okay, let us practice fiqh. That's really when you're really desperate. Just make wudu. Okay? So major state of impurity, no. No reading of the Quran, no touching of the Quran. And hold on to this rule. No? And minor state, you just so, no.
So even if you, so I'm not preaching, even if you got, you should touch the white spaces in the side without touching the pixel.
That's what Maulana said.
It's still not valid.
Still not valid?
You're still not allowed to.
I thought he said, yes.
That's what he did.
Can you read Quran on your phone and go like this without wudu?
You touch the side, you don't touch the verses.
Yeah. And the reason why, because the verses are not a real integral part of your phone, if you understand. Like your verses are there, but this is the screen. And as it is pixels and not real, it's not problematic. But on paper, it's a part of it. So, and that would be the difference. So that's why we use the sides, but we don't go with the hand over the ayat. It's over the ayat. No. She was first.
This is plastic and this is a printer. Can you touch it?
What do you think based on what has been said?
So without wudu, I would say yes, because it's separate.
What do you say, Maulana? If a page with Quranic verses is inside of that. Exactly, yes.
In menses?
You can't touch it. Can she touch it with men while someone is in menses, yes or no? And why not?
Major impurity, even if it's with a love, cannot be touched, right?
Okay, so Maulana says no. Okay, everybody comes back to me with that one as well. Okay, next time, would it be allowed, yes or no? If it's not in the ghilaf, it's something different. Meaning, would you be allowed to carry it in a bag? Like, would a lady be allowed to carry it in a bag if she were to be in that period in time? So come with answers from a Hanafi book. Okay? Inshallah. Okay. Where are we? Excuse me? Page what?
38.
38. Allahu Akbar. What did you say?
The second paragraph.
Second paragraph? Where?
Page 38.
So when someone,
Yeah.
in the absence of water and earth, when someone with major ritual impurity finds neither earth nor water,
Second paragraph.
if one were to make dry ablution, then pray, recite, and then wanted to make dry ablution again because of a major ritual impurity to prepare for another obligatory prayer or something else, it is not unlawful for him to recite the Quran according to the sound preferred opinion. Some of the latter companions of Shafi'i hold the opinion that it's not permissible, but the well-known is the former. I've read that, no? Yes, I read that. In the absence of water and earth, When someone with major ritual impurity finds neither earth nor water with which to attain purification, he may perform prayer because of the constriction of the prayer's time range. He does so whatever his circumstances may be. It is unlawful, however, for him to recite Quran outside of the bounds of prayer. And during the prayer itself, it is unlawful for him to recite more than Al-Fatiha. Yet it is unlawful for him to recite Al-Fatiha. There are two opinions concerning this. The sound and preferred opinion is that it is not unlawful. In fact, it is obligatory to recite Al-Fatiha since prayer is invalid without it. Just as it is permissible to perform prayer in spite of major ritual impurity because it became critical at that moment. It is likewise permissible to recite Al-Fatiha. In many issues, I find the Hanafi fiqh more easy to apply. Not meaning that it's better or worse. That's not what I'm trying to say. Yeah. The second opinion is that it is not permissible. Rather, one says that the litanies that an incapacitated person who has not memorized anything from the Quran would say. The former is incapable, according to sacred law, to perform and has become. Say that one. Analogous to someone disabled. The correct opinion is the first. You need to know everything for your exam, everything which is said here. These details we have just mentioned, that was sarcasm, that was not... These details that we have just mentioned are needed, and thus I alluded to them with the most concise expressions. Thank you for that. They have evidence and numerous supplements which are well known in the books of fiqh, and Allah knows best. Okay, the next one is easy.